It's good to be back. Good to be back. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Thomas, coming at you live from a little studio down in LKPT. And why? Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Of course, available on all podcasting platforms, whether it's Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, as well, most importantly, on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network, as well as my YouTube channel. I've been very active on YouTube as of late with a beautiful thing called YouTube Shorts, which I really like when I want to spit out just a nice, quick take that's, 60 seconds. Few guys can do that as good as me, if any. So, for what it's worth, just throwing that out there. All right, hammer down, right? Throwing down the gauntlet. So, of course, last week's episode, I talked a lot about the NFL draft and what I hope are the Buffalo Bills' plans for the NFL draft. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that because I really don't feel like I dove deep enough into that, and want to do a little bit more research on my own as we kind of inch closer and closer to the NFL drafts. If you're in, dynasty fantasy leagues like I am, or just fantasy leagues in general, it's always good to know who is legit and who is not so legit. It's also good to allow the fans of the show, you guys out there that tune in each and every Wednesday at 8, tuning in this time around at a special time of 7:30. I wanted to go live at 8, but I really was just itching to hop on. Not stepping on anybody's toes doing that, I don't think. And I felt like I was just ready to have at it. So could be a half-hour-long show today. Could be an hour-long show today. This podcast has been like my therapy over the years. I've needed it in order to kind of get my takes out there and to interact with you all, of course. So the fact that I get to do that each and every day on the networking side of things, the fact that I get to do that on, here, comments, I really appreciate as well, comments that you guys give me throughout the week. I'm going to be posting more statuses on Facebook as well as Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, just asking for your feedback. I just want to hear from you, the sports fan, on the Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Sabres, baseball, you name it, whatever take you got, fire it at me. Give me your take. It's the campaign rolling 10 years strong. Hashtag give me your take. So with that being said, at the end of the show, I will get to your takes. But first, let RT talk that is the 2026 NFL Draft. Now, in previous years, I've talked about the wide receiver class featuring marvelous Marvin Harrison, who has not been so marvelous as of yet, could change, but Marvin Harrison, Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman a couple years back. That was a really great positional class at the wide receiver position. As well, you've had some really solid stud tight ends in this league. Guys like Brock Bowers and Sam Laporta come through. You've had some really good quarterbacks come through, obviously, over the last, 9-10 years, Josh Allen being one of them, no doubt about it. This draft doesn't really have that, I guess I could say, for lack of a better term, hot or sexy position that makes me want to, just pound the table. Go get this guy. Now, are the wide receivers decent in this draft? Could they, quote unquote, help the Buffalo Bills? I think so. I would hope so, given the troubles that the Bills have had at the wide receiver position. But I just wanted to take a second to just break down some of the tape of one DJ Moore. I didn't get the chance to do that last week, and I'm going to pull up the machine known as YouTube, try to do a little screen sharing here. So I want to talk about DJ Moore a lot more than what I have, pun intended. Let's talk about DJ Moore a little more. Let's break down some of the tape that is in this video over the next 11 minutes. I'm going to hit the play button, and I'm just going to fire away. So hitting mute on that. We see what we see, and what we see is what we need. And I think that is what Brandon Beane and the brass that is at One Bills Drive said to each other as they were, contemplating making this move. Caleb Williams, a young quarterback in this league, oftentimes, had weapons at his disposal, but those weapons did not necessarily break on sideline routes like that quite as well as DJ Moore. Luther Burden turned it on towards the end of the year. But in this highlight, one of the things that I noticed with DJ Moore more than anything was just the different routes that the Chicago Bears asked of him to run. Now, is DJ Moore, the Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type conversation? Of course not. But DJ Moore, I feel, is, based upon what's asked of him, wide receiver one capable, running over the middle of the field, getting open. Now, commentating on some of these plays here, as I'd like to do, this shows here on the inside how DJ Moore allowed extra time getting open for Caleb Williams, which is something that will bode really well for Josh Allen's game. These routes that are on the left side of the field with DJ Moore coming into the middle side of the field, that middle left hash, that's really where he's done a lot of his damage over the course of not just his time in Chicago, but the time in his career. Caleb Williams, you see it right there, that rolling athleticism, which is very similar, dare I say it, to Josh Allen, of course. Not dare I say it. One guy's really good at it. The other guy is good at it, right? So DJ Moore bubble screen, yeah, DJ Moore bubble screen. That'll bode well for Joe Brady. And then over the middle here, we see DJ Moore come down with a really awkward ball thrown kind of on his front side shoulder, where he kind of had to dive downward in order to catch it. This is really something. This really jumped out at me when I watched this. And it was right on the numbers, but it kind of created a left awkward motion coming backwards a little bit. And that's something that Josh Allen's going to try not to do. Now, the hands are there. He just throws that ball, lays it right out. He catches that ball with his hands, not his body. There's a lot to like about DJ Moore in this offense with Joe Brady, based on what we saw of him trying to kind of squeeze the juice that was left in the orange with guys like Khalil Shakir and, yes, guys like Keon Coleman. One-handed snag, improvisational wideout, guy that can definitely add lib to his route. And I think that that's been something that's been missing from this Buffalo Bills offense really since the days of a prime Stephon Diggs. I say a prime Stephon Diggs because we obviously know that he's not in his prime any longer, and we obviously know that he wasn't in his prime the final year of his time in Buffalo. So DJ Moore doing a lot of little things right, running a lot of different routes, asked to do quite a lot within this Buffalo Bills offense, as he should be, given what has transpired over the last couple of years at the wide receiver position. Did they give up what they gave up? They did. They gave up a second-round pick, right? A lot of people wondering if that was a worthy investment. I'm here to tell you that if you feel like they shouldn't have traded for DJ Moore when their receivers are what they were, I don't know what you could want in the event of, what has transpired. Now, I did just get some breaking news, and it's unfortunate news. I want to kind of break real quick on this news. This is breaking. Now, this isn't related to the Buffalo Bills, but it is related to the NFL. Just got this news here. I'm going to read it off. So Adam Schefter reports that Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua has checked into rehab. His attorney Levi McCathern told the California Post, quote, he was in rehab a substantial period of time before any of these allegations broke with Madison. I don't know about the allegations, but that's not good. Told the California Post, and he's scheduled to be there for a while longer. It's a real shame to see a guy go through some sort of struggles. I was not aware of that. That could send a ripple effect throughout the entire NFL if Puka Nacua is not healthy for the 2026 season. So definitely want to touch on that. If you guys hadn't heard that news, throw that at you guys. Of course, we'll get back to DJ Moore. So back to it. The reason I want to talk about DJ Moore is because he's the most high-profile acquisition the Bills have made at the wide receiver position since Stephon Diggs. So looking at this now, I know obviously sideline catches, right sideline, left sideline, tracking that ball over his shoulder, catching it with his hands, not turning his shoulder back, but waiting for that ball to go over that shoulder so that it can get to the hands. That is just pure wide receiver 101. And they ran a little bit of reverses with him too. They tried to do a lot of different things. And, they say, well, he's not Jamar Chase. He's not, Justin Jefferson. As I said, no, he's not. But he's a pretty damn good wide receiver. And I would say in terms of underrated or overrated, where does he rank? I'd say he's pretty underrated given the quarterbacks that he's played with. Caleb Williams being the best out of those guys, and a litany of quarterbacks that he played with in Carolina. This catch was ridiculous. Bobbles it, catches it in between his legs. A lot of acrobatic, wild catches that I think were pretty amazing. So DJ Moore, the newest wide receiver 1 of the Buffalo Bills. I feel bad for not really propping that up in the form and fashion that I should have. But at the very least, DJ Moore is a hell of an acquisition. I am very excited about it. Now, I want to get to kind of what I put up here as some of the talking points of this show today. I talked about last week, Bills trade for DJ Moore. The offensive line will look a lot different. I was really happy that the Buffalo Bills were able to maintain the career in Buffalo of one Connor McGovern, retaining him, maintaining that cog in the offensive line. I think it's essential for Josh Allen, and I think it's essential for the run game. James Cook as well. Really happy that Connor McGovern was brought back, and Brandon Beane deserves a lot of credit for that. But in terms of this draft and for the draft plans of the Buffalo Bills for 2026, I'm going to kind of go through some mock draft scenarios, which I think Buffalo should make some particular picks at the 26th overall selection. Now, that's barring any trade-ups. It's barring what I think could potentially happen, a trade down, which would see Buffalo trade down and gain more picks, get some picks back that they traded away maybe in that DJ Moore trade. Now, that's not the sexiest thing to do. That's not the thing that the Bills Mafia are going to be really, clamoring, pounding the table for. But the hardcore football nerds, draft nerds like myself, understand very well that when you trade down, you can get more picks, fill more needs, and get more rookie contracts in this salary cap era that has gone bananas in the National Football League. So Buffalo Bills draft plans for 2026 for Brandon Beane, the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. It is now or it is never. There will never be a time where Bills Mafia will trust Brandon Beane any more than right now. And I say that kind of facetiously in the sense that if they think Brandon Beane hasn't done a good enough job, there's that camp, there's that group of fans. If they think that Brandon Beane has done a great job, good, great, or not so good, that's the tier. There's no one fan base that thinks Brandon Beane predominantly has done great. It's like 40-40-20, right? So if Brandon Beane does not accomplish what I want him to accomplish and putting together a better roster, what you want to see him accomplish and putting together a better roster, if he doesn't do those things, then the clock is ticking for Brandon Beane shortly thereafter. And I think a lot of the moves that Brandon Beane has made kind of allude to that no risk it, no biscuit, right? Trading away a second-round draft choice for DJ Moore, a move that I really like. Restructuring Josh Allen's contract. You go and look at Josh Allen's contract right now on Spot Track, however you pronounce it. It's pretty scary, right? 50-some million turned to 40, turned to 80 and 80. Like all these numbers are just, they're just overwhelming. But you need to move, kick the can down the road to get another, deal right now done and do this, to do that. And that's just the economics of today's National Football League in this, as I said again, a salary cap era. But this draft is a tough draft to look at and say, man, I can say with the utmost confidence that the Buffalo Bills are going to get better from this draft class. This draft class is not one of the better draft classes in recent years. It doesn't have, a lot of depth really anywhere. There are some really good guys in the secondary. There are some really good offensive linemen. There's a couple good tight ends. Tight end is not a position in need for the Buffalo Bills. We got Dalton Kincaid. We got Dawson Knox locked up for the next 3 years, which I was really thrilled with that as well. But there are positions in need on this team that I think, do you kind of just go to get the best player? Do you kind of try to just go out and get that guy that you really want that could make that position better? Similar to what the Minnesota Vikings did with Dallas Turner, a linebacker who, I didn't expect him to go there. I didn't expect, a team to move up and try to get him and things like that. We've seen it, throughout the last, 35 years. Teams have looked at the draft and said, okay, I don't need as many picks. I just need a player that I can count on, that I can rely on to come in and fulfill a position that we really need filled. And I would venture to guess that if I were to look at the Buffalo Bills team needs, we will pull that up now, heading into draft, that it would say edge, defensive tackle, as this article is. Now, I love the idea of bringing in pass rushers to try and get your pass rush to another level. Buffalo had Joey Bosa. Prior to that, they had Von Miller. Now they got Bradley Chubb. And I can't say for the utmost certainty that Bradley Chubb is going to be the Bradley Chubb that he was, 2-3 years ago. What I can say is that I think you could never have enough ability to get after the quarterback in this league, especially quarterbacks that like to move and escape and flush roll out of the pocket, force the pass rush to run up the field. There's a lot of those guys in the National Football League this, generation, this era. Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, will he be as mobile as he was post this, devastating injury that he suffered last season? There's a lot to say about guys that have movement ability at the quarterback position in this era. There really is. So could we see a guy like a Cassius Howell? Could we see a defensive tackle that would be more of like a nose tackle guy, which they really don't have right now? You look at the defensive line, Ed Oliver's not a nose tackle, right? And that's part of the reason why he hasn't really been successful as we'd want him to be in a 4-3, because he's a smaller guy. Maybe he plays defensive end in this 3-4. Maybe they go out and get a Caden McDonald or a Lee Hunter. Wide receiver-wise, there's Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. And then linebacker, I think, late-round guy, C.J. Allen was a name that jumped out at me in terms of what he brings to the table. Traditionally, as we know, Bills general manager Brandon Beane has targeted defensive linemen. But I think there's needs at corner. I think there's needs at safety, despite what Buffalo has done with the additions of C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Geno Lewis, and kind of the overhaul that we've had with the difference in aggression type additions. Now, there's a couple names here that I look at in terms of wide receivers at 26 overall. One of them is Omar Cooper Jr. of Indiana. Indiana had a miraculous collegiate run last season. A lot of that was due to Fernando Mendoza, and he's a fun player to talk about in his own right. But Omar Cooper Jr. is another player that I think was kind of in conjunction, right, as the wide receiver for Fernando Mendoza. Cooper is a great route runner. He can play the slot. He can play the outside. He's got great hands with only 3 drops in 94 targets last season. And what jumps out at me, I'd almost compare him not height or weight wise, but I'd almost compare him to a Debo Samuel in terms of his ability to be able to break a tackle and use vision as a big key in his game. He's a bigger guy in terms of weight, 6 foot, probably 205, 210, similar to Debo physically, but not quite as small. Debo kind of looks smaller on the TV than what he's listed. And I think Omar Cooper looks actually bigger than what he's listed, just for the eye test. So Omar Cooper Jr. is somebody that I really like too. Edge rusher Keldrick Falk of Auburn is another name. Falk provided consistent pass rush ability with Auburn. And if the fact of the matter is tradition, history repeating itself, AJ Epinesa failed a physical yesterday with the Cleveland Browns. So I don't know if he's coming back to Buffalo or to anywhere at this point, but we could see Buffalo decide to go the route of another edge rusher, which might piss off some Bills Mafia members, but could be a guy that, it's one to look at. C.J. Allen out of Georgia, I mentioned him, of course, a violent downhill linebacker that the one area of Buffalo's team that has really ticked me off these last X amount of years is their run defense. The run defense has been so bad that I can't consistently state enough how just demoralizing it is when I see, let's say, Saquon or really any running back. Sean Tucker put up 3 touchdowns on the Buffalo Bills defense last year, and he wasn't even a starter, wasn't even a backup. Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back. He had a day. So could a guy like C.J. Allen, he's got a good last name, could he do what needs to be done for Buffalo as a linebacker? I think potentially. Now, Allen has kind of been projected 25 to 35 in terms of pick, 25th to 35th. So could be a guy that Buffalo trades up for in the second round, or maybe it's a guy that Buffalo still gets if they traded out of the first round and traded down. Denzel Boston, talked about him, looked at as like a later end wide receiver in this wide receiver draft class. Cassius Howell out of A&M. There's a lot to like there with Cassius Howell. Now, he's a speedier guy. He's a smaller guy, arm length wise, and I think that could be somebody that they end up with. I dare say it too. Another player that they could go after is Caden Proctor out of Bama, who is an offensive tackle. This is not a sexy pick again, but this is a pick that I think does make a lot of sense in terms of the offensive line and who they've lost. David Edwards was a huge part of this offensive line, and they had to pick one or the other. It was either going to be McGovern or it was going to be David Edwards. They decided to go with McGovern, and I don't blame them for that, because when you look at the deal that David Edwards got from the New Orleans Saints, holy smokes, he got a lot of money. So they decided to go a different route, and that route that they went could allude to replacing that player with a first-round draft choice if, in fact, the wide receiver that's there is not who they want. Caden Proctor could be the guy. You got to think, too, in terms of the future, we don't want to talk about it, but Deion Dawkins could be coming to the end in Buffalo, This could be his last season with the Buffalo Bills. It's a very realistic possibility. I hope he finishes his career in Buffalo. I don't want to see him, play really anywhere else, but could be a possibility for his future. Now, I want to get to some comments here. I have to pull it up because some of them are DMs too, which I always appreciate that. But looking at one of the comments I got, it was from a buddy of mine, Kyle Huffnagel, and he wanted to talk to me about these Buffalo Sabres I don't know what the heck happened there. Buffalo Sabres are having a phenomenal season. They're a 100-point team for the first time since 2009, and 2009, 2010. So that goes back, as I drop my phone, that goes back to my senior year of high school. Okay, that goes back to my senior year of high school. Now, I tried to find it. I really did. I'll post it for the social media folks out there. But the last time uh, the Sabres made the playoffs, I had a lot more hair than I do now. And I was probably a $135 soaking wet, which safe to say I am not that any longer. But I still, still hope that I look spry. I'm not as spry as I used to be, but um, jokes aside, the Buffalo Sabres are a 100-point team. They are one win away from clinching a playoff spot, which is truly incredible for the first time in 15 years since 2011, which that 09, 10, 11, that was like the remnants of Ryan Miller, Thomas Vanek, Jason Pominville. They eventually bring Pominville back in later years, but this is great. I mean, I can't say anything negative about really any of this. Now, the hockey sports guy in me will say, well, man, they can beat anybody. They can beat anybody, but will they beat anybody? Will they play to their best night in, night out in a 7-game series? All it takes is 4 wins. You move on. 4 wins, you move on, and 4 wins, you're Stanley Cup, champions, something like that. So it's been a while. It's been a really long time. It's been way too long since the Buffalo Sabres were a playoff team. One more win in regulation, no matter how it's done tomorrow night, whether it's a shootout win or an overtime win or just a win in regulation, the Buffalo Sabres might not only make the playoffs, but if they finish the season on the highest note possible, they'll have won the entire Eastern Conference in the National Hockey League. So this is a miraculous turnaround. And make no mistake about it, if there was ever a person to just throw all the credit at in one instance, it's Lindy effing Ruff. Lindy Ruff has done a phenomenal job with this team. Again, it is no coincidence at all, that the Buffalo Sabres are what they are because of the fact that Lindy Ruff was brought back as their head coach. Now, does that have credit towards Kevin Adams? I guess. I struggle with that. I struggle with giving Kevin Adams any credit, despite the fact that he assembled the team. The team that he assembled was not a team until Lindy Ruff came along. And Kevin Adams, kind of just said, you know what, let's just bring back the old coach and see what the old coach can do. Granted, it felt at the time a little like wishful thinking, but old dogs can still learn new tricks. Lindy Ruff is one of the greatest coaches in hockey history. The wins don't lie. The numbers don't lie. The career does not lie. You go tit for tat everywhere he's been. He's taken dumpster fire teams and brought them from the abyss to the top of the league, whether it was the Sabres in 1999, whether it was the Sabres in 2005, 2006, or 06, 07, that back-to-back Eastern Conference semifinal run with the likes of Danny B and Chris Drury and Vanek and Roy and Pominville and Miller, Campbell, McKee, all of it, right? That was the best Sabres team I'd ever seen. I think this team could beat that team. Yes, I think this team, the 2025, 2026 Buffalo Sabres, could beat the 2005, 2006 Sabres. More skill, more youth, better defense. That goes without saying. One of the reasons why Buffalo came up short against the Carolina Hurricanes was due to the amount of injuries they had on defense. Granted, you had Jay McKee, Rhett Warner, Brian Campbell, Rhett Warner, no, you didn't have Rhett Warner. I'm sorry. Jay McKee, Brian Campbell, Henrik Tallinder, Teppo Nuneman. Nothing against those guys, but in terms of skill, there is no comparison between guys like Teppo. Love you, Teppo. Love you, Teppo. One of the best names ever. But Teppo Nuneman was not a scorer. Rasmus Dahlin's got 19 goals. Matthias Samuelsson's got like 14 or 15 goals, if my memory serves me right. This defensive core, Bowen Byram, is one of the best puck-moving defensemen in the game. From end to end, he takes the puck around the net, takes it up, finds the open guy, moves within the ice very, very well, within the wing very, very well, and sets up quite a lot. He's a havoc wreaker of a defenseman. And I think that they would play with the 0506 Sabres like they were baby food. I really do. I love, still to this day, love the 0506 Sabres, but I think the 25-26 team kicks their ass. I really do. Even with Ryan Miller in net, because you look at who we got in net. You got UPL, who was dead to rights and had a hell of a comeback this season. I thought he was going to get traded earlier in the year, and he's put up the best stretch of his career by far. And then Alex Lyon, who provides that veteran backstop stability that I think has really rubbed off on the team. I would say that there's few, unsung leaders, unsung heroes, guys that, just come out of nowhere that are just great for that locker room. And I think Alex Lyon was one of them. I think Zach Benson is another one. The development that this kid has had, he's played in 200 games and he's not even 22. That is ridiculous, that the career that he's had at the age he came into the league and what he's done playing as an 18-year-old, doing what he's done from day one is remarkable. So the only, gripe I have with the Sabres right now is that they didn't extend Alex Tuch yet. Do I think that will happen? I hope it does, because Alex Tuch is one of those guys that I've just really grown to admire, and I love the fact that he was the guy, the main piece that we got in the Jack Eichel trade, because he is Buffalo. Like, through and through, Jack Eichel was not, and Alex Tuch is. And, I'd hate to see that guy go. I think he provides a valuable two-way game that makes them such an offensive defensive team that is so tough to game plan for. Are they going to be a defensive team? They're attackers on defense. They're attackers on offense. And I think Lindy Ruff is just having fun with letting these guys loose a little bit, back to what he did with the 0506 team. It's now or never. We're either going to make it, going to do what we need to do, or we're not. And if we don't, then we're going to come up short, and we're going to feel bad about it. So let's just give it our all, one game at a time. And that seems like that's the attitude since December 9th, with this team going on the most miraculous run in franchise history. It's been a dark period, this 15-year run for the Sabres of not making the playoffs, but this is an organization that has had a lot of really good players on it. This is an organization that's had arguably the best goalie in the history of the league, arguably the best goalie in the history of America in Ryan Miller, and arguably one of the greatest lines in NHL history, no doubt, with Gilbert Perreault, Rick Martin, and company. Rene Robert, drew a blank there. But there's just Pat LaFontaine, Alexander McGillney. I go on and on. It's great that the Sabres are back. It really is. It's refreshing. It's fun. I'm here for it, right? I'm here for it. I don't care really how long they go. Granted, of course I care. But I'm just going to enjoy it because it's been a long time. I'm going to go out to the bars for the playoff games, the whole bit. Like, that's, yes. Inject that into my veins, please. Give me that. I want that. I've wanted that for so damn long. It's been way too long, but Pat Peyton Krebs, shout out to that guy. Sam Carrick. Who else? Who am I missing? You know, one guy that really chapped my rear that I just did not like was Owen Power. And even him, he's had moments this year still where I'm like, what is this guy is soft. He's not playing like he's 6'6". But there's been some moments where he's looked pretty good too. So, you know, coaching is everything. Lindy Ruff, coach of the year. If anything else happens in regards to that, we head down to downtown Buffalo and show our support for our coach. He's the greatest coach in Buffalo Sabres history by a long shot, and he's one of the greatest coaches in the history of the National Hockey League, third in wins all time. Granted, he's coached almost as long as I've been alive, but if you're a good coach, you get to coach for a long time. Pretty simple. So thank you so much for tuning into the Thomas Take Sports Podcast tonight. This was a great show. Really appreciate breaking down DJ Moore, getting to your comments. Kyle, to put it simple, I'm happy that they're in the playoffs, but I can't let myself get my hopes too high. I want to just enjoy this Cinderella run just like we did 20 years ago back when we were 13 at Emmett Belknap Middle School at the time. Remember those days, man, when we were walking through the halls and seeing all the red and black, the blue and gold, all that? Bringing that back. These kids deserve it. The kids on the ice deserve it. For the Sabres, and the kids in the schools deserve it too. The hockey programs deserve to see a local product that's really good and just revive the hockey scene as it has been completely dominated by the United States of America. What a moment that was. Jack Hughes sealing the deal. 3-on-3 action against Canada in overtime. Didn't talk about that yet. One of the greatest sights these eyes have ever seen. So with that, USA all the way. Let's go Buffalo. And last, certainly not least, go Bills.